Okay, so last time, which was 2 weeks ago, we talked about ascribing Ra to Hashem, and we finished reading the parak. So let's just summarize it, and then we'll go on to the new parak. Okay, so summary was about causing evil. Hold on. Ra is only Ra in relation to something, right? It's relative. So, for example, sickness is Ra in relation to health. Poverty is Ra in relation to money. All right. All Ra's are privations. That was the main idea. Okay, and privation meaning a lack of something that ought to be there. One will only disagree with this proposition if, there's only two ways, you either fail to distinguish between privation and existent qualities, like the metukalimum, or you are ignorant of the nature of any given Ra. So for example, if you think that sickness is an actual thing, and you don't realize it's just when the body is not in equilibrium, okay? And that's what the example we gave is someone asked the question, well, what about like a bacteria or a virus? Like, isn't that a thing? And I said, yeah, it's a thing, but it's the reason a virus is not sickness, or bacteria is not sickness. It's that the bacteria or virus affects your body's equilibrium, and then the symptoms of that we call sickness.
That's their body's natural form. That's their body's dynamic equilibrium.
Right. So that's their bodies as a particular, but in terms of the, for lack of a better term, the design of the species, which we infer based on, we induce based on like, based on most people, then we call that a deviation.
But there are big percentages of people who have many deviations on different kinds of.
Right, but in each and every given one of them, then it's a extreme minority. Or even if it's not extreme, it is a minority, you know? Yeah.
To disprove this, though, you have to, like, this is an inductive reasoning where he's saying, like, all the nature of the given of all Ra or whatever are that they're privations. So then you have to, in order to disprove it, you have to find one which isn't, right?
Right. Yeah.
I feel like there is. I just can't think of it.
Okay. So then work on it. Yeah. Then we said God does not produce Ra directly. All Ra's come from the fact that God created matter, which is inherently tied to privation and is the cause of all coming to be and passing away. So God does create Ra, and that's what we say in the brachos of Kriya Shema. Actually, sorry, we say a slightly different thing. We say Yotzer or Ubore Choshech, Ose Shalom, Ubore Esakol, but then the original pasuk says Ubore Ra, okay, which the Rambam is going to talk about later on. And what we mean by that is God created a world in which there is matter, and matter has deficiencies, and all of the Ra's come from those deficiencies. But, so why is that not a problem? Like, is because God only does good because, is because matter is good, because it allows for a world of coming to be and passing away.
Maybe it is good, though, that there are something like privation, because the privation kind of like help you like learn and like get something new, like.
That is definitely true, but that's still thinking about it in like a human focused perspective, and he's really talking about the whole universe. So you're right, it's good for humans, but you can't say that God did that for the entire universe. No, just so
that means that change or that are lacking, like they evolve and that becomes the new form because it was good. So again, the moment it might seem like it was bad,
yeah.
It was privation ends, all privations are good.
Yeah, that's also true. That's also true. Okay. So this is a very short chapter, as you can see here. Okay, so he says, the great evils that come about between the human individuals who inflict them upon one another because of purposes, desires, opinions, and beliefs, are all of them likewise consequent upon privation. For all of them derive from ignorance, I mean from a privation of knowledge. Okay, this is a big statement here.
Which is worse?
What or what?
Deprivation of nature or deprivation of
knowledge? I don't know if you can say, because they're different causes. Like,
what about,
maybe I don't understand the question.
When you look at the deprivations of nature,
let me explain why I can't understand the question.
Let's say someone does something bad to you versus nature doing something bad to you.
Right. I think that's like apples and oranges. Like, worse by what standard? I don't know what's the standard. me say which one's worse. Like that's like asking like what's worse.
Which
Like
which is more okay to get upset?
is there any that is okay to get upset about?
I'm trying to think of it in terms of Iyov, because like he got
Mhm.
upset about the bad things that he was dealt,
Right.
right? Which are in terms of nature.
Yeah.
So like if it was like a person who like screwed him over, like could he be more justified in his anger, or because it's specifically nature, it's
Let's think about that question when we get back to Iyov himself. I don't know if it's going to be helpful for us to start comparing justifications when the very thing we're trying to learn is how Iyov is not justified, right? Like Iyov's reaction was wrong. So like let's learn the correct ideas, and then we can measure how bad the wrong ideas are afterwards. Yeah.
Are we saying that if we're like upset about something? I know like maybe not. We're upset about like something bad that happens because of nature, like that's not good because that means we're not understanding it.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it now, but you're on the right track though in terms of thinking about what the purpose of Iyov is. Okay, but let's just focus on this right now. Okay, so what's he saying so far? Oh, I forgot to finish reading. For all of them derived from ignorance, I mean privation of knowledge. Just as this is a good mashal. Just as a blind man, because of absence of sight, does not cease stumbling, being wounded, and also wounding others, because he has nobody to guide him on his way. Right? That I don't think anyone will argue with. If you're blind, then you're going to get hurt and you're going to hurt others. Okay, if you're reckless, obviously. So too, the various sects of men. Each individual, according to the extent of his ignorance, does to himself and to others great evils from which individuals of the species suffer. So point number one here is all ra'os which human beings cause to one another and to themselves stem from privation, meaning ignorance, which is privation of knowledge.
Not all raw comes from
Yeah.
It does.
Privation is our ignorance.
But how? What?
All privations is our ignorance of knowledge.
No, all privations of knowledge are ignorance. All privation of knowledge is ignorance. So all human ra'os that we cause to ourselves and each other stem from that privation.
It's not talking about. It's not saying all ra'os stem from human ignorance.
No, it's saying all ra'os that people cause to each other or to themselves.
But how does that? Wait.
Forget about Iyov. We're forgetting about Iyov for a very, very long time, right? We have been and we will. Okay, we've got to get all these premises first, and then yeah. I don't know why you guys only are bringing up Iyov today, right? Like we've been off of talking about Iyov for quite a while now. Yeah, and the reason why we call this preparation for learning Iyov is because it's. Let me explain this. It's preparation for going out to learning Iyov. Yeah. Okay.
Does this contradict
No, it's an example of the other thing we were saying. But what were you gonna say? You started to say something, Ayala. I thought you did. Maybe I misheard you.
Maybe I did. I forgot.
Okay.
You did say something.
Yeah.
What other?
This is confusing. Okay. Let's start with this point. Okay. Does anyone have a problem with this point? Okay. So what's your problem?
Because
And what's your
I
problem?
thought I contradicted the other point, because the other thing was like nature causes privation, right?
Right.
And now you're saying people are causes of all privation.
Right.
They're both.
No. People are not the cause of all privation. No one's saying that.
There are both. There's nature and human privation.
Yeah.
It's just not God. Wait. The past side. Every individual does to himself and to others great evils. Wait, but
He's saying it very simply. Let me just say it in hundreds. Interpersonal harm and self-harm come from ignorance. That's not a contradiction to the fact that you can have other harms that don't come from ignorance, right? Tornadoes are not caused by your ignorance.
then again, just like God only does good because good is only it because good is existence there.
Yeah,
Just because like you can only do good.
yeah,
So too, a man only does good. I mean, it could be like he is a indirect.
yeah, and that's the same thing.
So is God.
Right, but the difference is that God has good reason to cause indirect ra because of the design of the universe. Whereas for us, when you like, eat, something that's poison, and then you get sick, like that's not part of some larger design. That's just like you harming yourself,
But
And even though it's not direct, meaning you're not actually directly harming yourself, you had a lack of knowledge which caused you to eat the wrong thing, and then your body goes out of equilibrium because you put the poison into the system, and then you suffer. but that's not good. Yeah.
Man can only do good. No, man does that too.
No, I was saying man can only directly do good because we said that no one can directly do anything evil because evil is not a thing.
What new point is this making?
What was that?
What new point?
Okay. This is making a very.
What old point is it making?
I think we're all confusing ourselves today. Okay.
Yeah.
Very simple point. Okay. All of the evil that people cause each other and themselves come from ignorance. That's the only point he's making. Okay. And then the connection between this and the previous thing is ignorance is a privation. It's a privation of knowledge.
Okay, so the problem is actually no, it's not a problem. So that is the
Oh right, because
some of it, which is the
sorry. You know, yeah, it makes sense. It's like you're ignorant because you have a lack of knowledge, and privation is a lack of.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay. Now, usually when I teach this, people have a bunch of problems with it, but not your problems. No. Can anyone not think of it as something that seems like a disproof to this?
What?
Can anyone think of a disproof of this? An example that disproves this?
Ignorance could be good. Well, because everything you're doing has some harm on someone. Like if you do good to someone, it's harming someone else. But that's not.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I hear that. I hear that.
I
actions
was
have
saying
good
that.
consequences.
Wait, no, maybe because we don't have all the knowledge anyway, so we're technically still ignorant because we don't know.
Yeah, that's also true. But I think that's like just part of the human condition is that we're always going to be subject to making, what do you call it?
Oh, because we're not causing ourselves. Like nature causes. When nature causes us harm, it's not we cause that.
But that's not what he's talking about. Though. He's talking about
Which human
all-
beings cause each other. And,
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Should-
right here.
Should we come back to this tomorrow?
Just me, sorry.
Yeah. No, okay. No, it's not that. It's I feel like something's short circuiting in people's thinking today.
Gets the chocolate.
No,
I
chocolate.
We're
Yeah.
all already made out of water.
Right.
This is being recorded.
Yeah, it is, but we're not gonna post it. Let's do this. Let's finish reading the chapter, and then tomorrow we'll summarize it, and then maybe you'll see questions that you're not seeing right now. Okay. All right. If there were knowledge whose relation to the human form is like the faculty of sight to the eye, they would refrain from doing any harm to themselves and to others. For the knowledge of truth removes hatred and quarrels and prevents mutual harms.
Oh, because you're saying that the lack of knowledge, that the harm stuff it's harm, like things are harm because you don't know. Like, it's saying
Sometimes it
that-
can be because you don't know you're harming.
It's not like viewable with the naked eye. Like you're saying that.
No, he's using an analogy still. He's going with the blind analogy. So if people had knowledge, they would refrain from doing evil to themselves and to others.
But people do have knowledge.
No, complete knowledge.
They don't have knowledge.
Yes, but no one has complete knowledge.
Right. But he's saying
Everyone has-
any area where you lack knowledge, then there's the potential that you're going to cause harm to yourself or to other people.
Well, then how could you prevent? Then you can't prevent that
Good.
because you're never going to know everything.
You can prevent it on an individual level. Just because you can't know everything doesn't mean you can't know anything.
But then, no, I know. But if you don't know something, then how do you know the consequence of it? And you can't know not to do something if you don't know.
Yeah. So that's why you learn. That's why we're constantly trying to figure out more knowledge. Like take it in the area of of health, right? Like a couple generations ago, they didn't know that smoking was bad for you, so people smoked. Now we know that smoking is bad for you, so we avoid it. And I'm sure tomorrow we'll find about stuff that we think is good for us, and we really find out that it's bad for us. So
Then there's no way to really avoid doing that.
there's no way to avoid doing all rows. True. Because we never have all the knowledge, but that doesn't mean that you can't make any progress. The more knowledge we gain, then the more we're going to avoid
We're
Ra.
not gonna be perfect.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
So
we're always gonna
We're
suffer.
also gonna be,
Yeah.
What is the Yitzhahara though?
So it depends on how broadly you define Yitzhahara, right? Because what I would say is that they're okay, you know what? Maybe the easiest way to convey this point and to bring up this question that I know you guys have, I just don't want to lead you too strong. Let's make a list of Ra'os that people cause to themselves and to each other. So name a bunch. No, a particular.
Privation.
Okay, wounding each other or wounds.
Emotional.
So isn't that, but isn't
Emotional harm. Okay, verbal.
So maybe, because emotional.
Wars, murder, theft, right? Abuse, stealing, cheating, right? These are all harms that people lying, right? Okay, yeah. So now that we have a bunch of examples here, okay. So the Rambam is saying all of these stem from ignorance.
Oh, because emotional harm, like it's ignorance to knowing that that thing would harm the other person. Are you saying that?
Do it, but not be ignorant about
Oh,
it.
sorry. Say again.
Like emotional harm, kind of like this to do that one, like it's because you don't know, like your lack of knowledge that would harm you.
Okay, good. So one example of when you cause emotional harm to someone is that you don't know that this is going to hurt them, right? Like sometimes
Yeah, it's still free will. It's not just ignorance. Obviously, like you can't just blame every bad thing. Like if someone's abusing someone, you can't just say like, yeah, they just don't know better. Like
Ignorance,
they
not
know
ignorance
better.
like you would think of ignorance. Ignorance as like a lack of knowledge. Not like ignorant, like they're
right. So ask me the obvious question then. You don't need to go free will. Just ask me the obvious question.
What's obvious?
Aren't there cases where you know that something is harmful or bad and you do it anyway?
Oh yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Someone could be because you're not seeing the full extent to which it's
Okay.
bad.
No serial murderers.
Maybe
know
if we
that
didn't have a
they're
question
bad.
because we already had the answer.
That could be.
No, serial killers are people who like run away from, let's say, police people. Like they know that they did something wrong, so they're like acting like when they try and cover up a scandal, like they know that they did something wrong.
But
Like, I don't know what
maybe,
the fuck
but they don't. Do they really know it?
Yeah. Okay.
They know they
So
did something wrong.
this is the point that I wanted to bring out. Is what Leah is saying basically is that there's two types of ignorance. Okay, and this is and maybe you just learned Mishlei too well. Okay, there's two types of ignorance. When the Rambam says that all, let me just get back to the slide here. When he says that all rows come that we cause each other and ourselves come from ignorance, there's ignorance in terms of lacking factual knowledge, and then there's ignorance where you have the facts but the knowledge is not real to your emotions. Okay, so for example, when your great-grandparents smoked, they lacked knowledge that it was harmful. They lacked factual knowledge that it was harmful, okay? But when you eat stuff that's unhealthy, you know that it's harmful, but it's not real to you that this could shorten your life or that this could cause problems. So that's another type of ignorance, like Leah was saying. Because in the case of you eating something that's unhealthy, then
Because you know, right?
yeah, then I could give you all the facts in the world, and that's not necessarily going to change you, right? Yeah, or like the person who, you know, you use smoking as an example. Also, someone who's addicted to smoking, like they know that it's bad for them, but they keep on doing it. But let's say like you told them that like they take one more puff and they will die on the spot, right? So like then they probably wouldn't do it.
Obvious, but yeah, like this is the problem with physical things. Like if you knew everything and it was real to you, your knowledge, then you would just be perfect and there'd be no free will. Like
right, but this is a
because you're choosing not to believe it and you're choosing not to. I mean, except free will in the sense that it's free. There's no choice. If you know it, you know it.
Right, but that's the famous midrash about God holding Har Sinai over everyone's head, right? Yeah. Is that it was in one sense, obviously they did accept it based on free will, but in the other sense, their free will was drastically compromised because the reality of God was so apparent that like, what are they supposed to say? Because if someone's holding a gun to your head and saying like, do this or I'll shoot, you really are not, you're just being compelled to act based on your emotions in that case, you know, like it's not really free, which is why halakhically, no, but in the case of Bnei Yisrael at Har Sinai, then Chazal say that it was almost like they were coerced to accept Torah because God's reality was so apparent that they couldn't deny it, you know?
How do you define free?
I was asking you.
Oh, what? Like, how do you define free?
Like, you know something and you have the choice to, like, I guess.
So knowledge
it's still their choice whether or not they fully believe in Hashem. Like, they don't have to be like, just because like 5 million of the nation is doing it doesn't mean that you.
Like, it's just a stronger pull. It's just a stronger pull on one side.
It's just not free. It's your choice. Yeah, it's with a bunch of other factors.
You know, as this is not no disrespect to your question. I just really don't think that we need to have a discussion about free will right now, because that's like one of the deepest topics. I just want to get this one point that the Rambam is making here, okay? Just well, that's all I want, right? Which is that when you make a decision to, when you make a decision that harms yourself or someone else, it's because you're lacking knowledge. Either you don't factually know something, and you don't know that this is harmful, or you know it's harmful, but the knowledge is not real to you because your emotions are overpowering it. Okay, those are the two things. And this is radical because this is a chiddush. Again, you've been in Judaism for a while, and also we've talked about this in Mishlei. This is radical because I think there are people who will think that there is such a thing as where does evil come from? Evil emotions or evil desires. I think that's a big thing, or the Satan, or whatever. I don't think people trace all human harms to ignorance.
All human harm?
All ra'os, which human beings cause to each other.
Okay, good.
That's what?
Not which human beings cause to each other. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. At the end, this state of society is promised to us by the prophet in the words, the wolf will live with the sheep and the leopard will lie down with the kid meaning a lamb, not a human child, and a calf, a lion whelp, and a fatling, fatling, that's a funny word, together, and a young child, I don't know what kind of animal a fatling is, and a young child would lead them, a cow, oh, sorry. Is that a typo or is that another thing I don't know? A cow bear will graze and their young will lie down together. I don't know what the Hebrew is. And a lion like cattle will eat hay. A suckling child will play by a viper's mouth.
Bear.
A what?
It just says a bear.
Oh, bear. Okay, fine. Oh, so I just didn't delete it from here. That must have been a typo. A bear will graze and their young will lie down together. And a lion like cattle will eat hay. Suckling child will play by a viper's mouth. And a newly weaned child will stretch his hand towards an adder's lair. So this is a famous prophecy about Yemos Mashiach. So then he says, so Rambam takes this all as a mashal for human beings getting along. He says the prophet also points out what will be the cause of this change, for he says that hatred, quarrel, and fighting will come to an end because men will then have a true knowledge of God. They will neither injure nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth will be filled with knowledge of Hashem as water covering the seabed. Note it, meaning that all of the peace that will come about in the time of Mashiach will come about through knowledge, because the only cause of us harming each other is through lack of knowledge.
So you're extending lack of knowledge to lack of emotional knowledge. You could say you can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What about nature?
This is all, let me start one more time. These great evils that come about between the human individuals. Leah, we're only talking about between human.
Nature. In the times of Mashiach,
yeah.
If you're saying that there will be no harm.
There will be no harm of the type described like this, where people are victimizing each other.
And then I guess there's just the wrong and the wrong. That's of whether or not nature will harm.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So why wouldn't people be harming each other?
Why wouldn't people be harmed? Because they'll have knowledge.
But just because you have knowledge doesn't mean that it's going to change the way you act. Because I feel like you're also emotion driven.
And that's why I just said that it's not just intellectual knowledge, but it's knowledge that's real to the emotions. If you had knowledge that was factual, that you had the correct knowledge in your mind and it affected your emotions, you would not do any harm.
I'm sorry to get out of the free will point again, but then there's no free will, right? And then
so how will there be free will in the time of Mashiach?
If everyone knows everything, then there's nothing changing. You can't learn.
Right. Oh no. So
It sounds like we're going to be robots.
Okay. Let's take that question up tomorrow. Okay. I don't think we're gonna answer it in the 50 seconds remaining. It's fine. No, we all have giddy days. Yeah. Oh, last part of the summary here. Ultimately good at the time of Mashiach will come about due to the knowledge of reality that mankind will possess. Yeah.
Not we. I mean, like that every point is tied to not like us. I mean, like a lot of Torah, because we don't actually know, and no one actually knows. And it kind of feels like we're just gonna be robots as soon as Mashiach comes, and everything will just be like that.
All right, so let's talk about that at some point. I actually don't know if I want to talk about that particular point tomorrow, because I do want to start this next chapter. But question and answer day, we can talk about that.
The part where it says the lion, like the animals will live piece, that has nothing to do with knowledge. That's
so the Rambam takes that as a mashal for the enemies of Klal Yisrael, and they're compared to like predatory animals. So we will be able to get along with our enemies. Let's say we'll be able to live with Nazis and white supremacists, because once they have knowledge, they'll realize that what they've been doing is actually harmful, and they'll stop having that animosity and hatred and quarreling. The ones who don't die, I guess.
What about mental illness? People who have a mental illness that won't allow them.
Right. So that is a ra that stems from human or from the nature of matter.
So then
So we're not talking about that.
they don't qualify.
Yeah, I think though the Rambam did not view those as stemming from matter. I think I don't think they had a sufficient understanding of.
Just because he doesn't think that though. I'm asking like.
Yeah, so for us, that's going to be in the same category when we talk about ra that comes from nature, which we'll just have to talk about tomorrow.
Torah have like
Sure
mental
thing.
illness? Like,
Uh-oh.
Yeah, shall.